Oh, this is what I meant. Are we ready? We're so thankful to discuss topics who are about the journey of the soul. It would be very strange not invest interest, not invest ekagrata at one point with endeavor. Deal with it, and we also pray that all this we are hearing today, that it will, like the dreams we heard from Patraka and Jaganidhi yesterday. What are dreams? This means something which is really precious to my heart. It will naturally float further. So this is our prayer, that when we end this day, then our discussions, what we heard, what we were singing, it enters another place. It was so beautiful. I have many remembrances from brahmachari ashrams, where we all slept together in one room. You know this. Then we learned verses during the day, and in the night one could hear in the dream they were singing the verses. It was such a joyous thing. So maybe it will hear in the very silence of the night of India. Suddenly, joyous cries in the night. Thank you. No, but another word for ekagrata chitta is actually interest. Yeah. Because it's about an important education of this Atma. Even the Latin word interesse means inter, between, esse means to be. So it's Ichha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata. Krishna is even saying the consciousness of a conditioned soul is so much in judging and arranging situations and preference in the external world and some things that I don't like, is so much absorbed that there is no being between anymore. This is called interest. And that's why the first thing that Arjuna is saying to Krishna is, can you bring me in between? Between the armies. So what is this? Arjuna lost all enthusiasm for the group he was in before. Because in the very first or second, third verse, he said all the Pandavas, they were with a will to fight, they were assembled. But all this is lost. This is such a wonderful thing. If you go interest in a being in between, because there, so that it's so easy. If I'm in my old Schlachtreihe, what was it?
Patterns?
Huh? In the battle row. I'm always in my battle row of my previous thinkings. It's so easy to be enthusiastic or to defend it, but interest means something so different. So this is just what we want to do today. Thank you.
Gurave Gaurachandrai Radhikaya Tadale Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah. Shri Radha Govinda Ji ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Gadai ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanand Hari. Welcome all, Pranam, and thank you, Krishna Chandra Prabhu, for those beautiful words. I am always a fan of the in-between. No? That's where the most truth is found also. It's another way of saying nor black nor white, but the 256 varieties of gray that exist in between black and white. So most truth happens in the in-betweens, right? Like we were the other day reading some verse from the Gita on Janmashtami 4:6, what the verse says officially, literally. And now let's go what it's saying between the words, in between the lines, in between the two sides of the battlefield, whatever. Yeah. Grand mentor of my father, Richard Rourke, he will say, I like to live in the edge of the inside. No? Father Richard Rowe will say, like, he speaks about the circle. So let's say your circle is your tradition. So I live on the edge of the inside. So I'm still inside my tradition, but I'm living on the edge, so I'm seeing what's going on the other side. If I'm too much in the center, I lose sight of all the in-betweens. I become too centralized, to over-identify with only one way of being and doing things. So I'm loyal to my ideal, but I'm inhabiting the borders to engage in conversation with nuance and diversity and the in-betweens. So yeah, I really appreciated Krishna Chandra Prabhu's, in one sense, like symbolic reading of this first section of the Gita, which of course we can read scripture literally, but there is so much more information if we can read, okay, the blind king Dhritarashtra, what that blindness implies, how that speaks about me, the in-between, which are the symbols behind all that. Though we do not deny that happened historically, that's one level of reading, literalism. That's the lowest reading of Shastra. A more archetypal, symbolic reading, and then esoteric reading, that's another thing. Like, I don't know, for example, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what's night for some people is day for others, right? So what will be a literal reading of that verse?
4 o'clock in the morning.
Literal.
The sadhus get up, and the party people get to sleep.
Yeah. Very, very literal. Right? So you read that verse, literally means at the time certain people is literally awakened, other people is asleep. Now, what will be a more symbolic reading of that? What's implications of sleeping and awakening? Trivanga Prabhu.
Just a suggestion that where some people become very alive and interested. Very,
Interesting.
Is that where the saints, they're not interested, and the other the saints, they're jubilated and very interested. Comes to such a place to hear such a class.
Yeah.
The others, they don't want to come. They don't want to hear. If we would invite them. So many other examples.
Yeah.
I prefer sleeping.
Yeah. So yeah, that will be a more symbolic reading. That's not literal reading, but that's implication to what some people is awakened or attentive or interested in. Some other people are looking in another direction, right? And of course, then you can take another, even more, an esoteric reading of the verse. which again is not in the official lines, but if you have a feeling for the ultimate implications of these lines, you may end up in the lila. I'm thinking, I don't know, for Sri Radha, she's awakening. She's with Krishna in the Nikunja after spending a night in the battlefields of Cupid in this case. And the day is coming. No, this the first sun rays. The animals in the forest start to sing. So day is coming, but for her that's night, because she has to be separated from her pranana. And the opposite, when night is coming, oh, that's her day. The light of hope is coming. That's a bright darkness, because so I'm meeting with Krishna for the night rendezvous, Abhisar. No? So what's night for some is day for others. Right? Again, when you say that's not in the Bhagavad Gita, but if we have a feeling for the text and the person who speaks and the final implications, if you play out the verse to its full reach, you may end up there, right? But just one example of one verse of the Bhagavad Gita. One could do that same exercise with so many sections. So that's to say that scripture is there, but what we will get from a scripture largely depends where we are. Because you give the same verse to different people and they will get so many different things. And I'm not saying one is wrong, the other is right. There are different degrees of approaching the truth. Anyhow, some reflections in connection to Krishna Chandra's words. And somehow we will see how this connects, but all this is in connection, and I'm sure there is a connection between, because Sambandha, everything is connected, right? And today we want to talk about you, the soul. A few days ago, before Janmashtami, we talked about love in the context of a book I recently published on the evolution in divine love. Shall I go slowly? You shouldn't? No?
Fine.
Krishna Chandra has entered the arena now?
There.
Well, okay. But you let me know if I'm going, either of you. Yeah. So we share some thoughts about the nature of love 3 days ago. Love being ever evolving, ever expanding, ever thirsty for more, ever hungry. Love having, as I put in my book, insatiable appetite, right? Sometimes lust is described in that way in the Gita. Yeah. But the ultimately kama, lust, is another word for love. No? Kama rupa bhakti, kama nupa bhakti, kama. So lust has its own insatiable appetite, indirectly reflecting in a distorted way love's own insatiable appetite. And as a consequence of that, we were talking also during Janmashtami and these days how if love is ever evolving, always thirsting for more, that applies to Krishna, to the divine, because love and God are inseparable. You cannot make the two of them entirely separate entities, as you cannot make Radha and Krishna entirely separate. They're one and they're two at the same time. So if love is ever evolving, if love continues to update itself, then we have a God who is also always evolving. Chaitanya Charitamrita will say, at every moment, Krishna becomes more beautiful. He's changing. I mean, he doesn't change in the sense that Krishna is always Krishna. It's not that Krishna stops being Krishna and someone else enters into the post. Now I'm Krishna. No? Krishna is always Krishna. But his Krishnaness is always expanding. Krishna means the all attractive. So the all attractive becomes all the more attractive. So Krishna becomes more Krishna at every moment. Chaitanya Charitamrita says that. And Krishna is always increasing his beauty. And the love of the devotees, specifically the gopis is said in that verse, is increasing in response to Krishna's increased beauty. The more beautiful Krishna becomes, the more love the gopis have to honor that new beauty. And the more love he receives from the gopis, the more beautiful Krishna becomes. And the more beautiful Krishna becomes, the more loving disposition is in the heart of the gopis to honor that beauty. And so on and so forth. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami concludes saying, and the two of them, now Krishna's increased beauty, gopis' increased love, the two of them engage in a competition, in a battle, another battlefield, in which neither of both accept defeat. One is not defeating the other, but both of them are constantly augmenting, increasing. So somehow we are invited to participate in that, to be in between that. That's the potential of the Atma. We will talk today about that, who we are, what's our potential. Srila Bhakti Dev Goswami Maharaj, he will say usually, your future is brilliant. Johnson, I like that one. Your future is brilliant. Even if we wake up on a day. Okay, we have believed Srila Maharaj. That's more safe even. But I believe him, yeah, also. So yeah, we may not trust even that. We may wake up on a cloudy day with a cloud on top of our heads and feel my future is brilliant. Doesn't look like it. But sadhus are seeing with their glance of unconditional love, they're piercing all these layers of negativity and limitedness and say, no, your future is brilliant. No matter what you've gone through, what you are going through, what you will be going through, all that is for the sake of the brilliant future as waiting for you. So that gives lots of hope. We are being seen according to our potential, not according to what we did 20 years ago, even who we are now, which still may be a mess. Right? We are seen in terms of all that we can become in our brightest future. That's how Krishna sees us. Oh, you can become such a bright, beautiful unit of loving dedication. That's who you are in my eyes. That's how Krishna thinks. And his representatives see us in the same way. Not with judgmentalism, not with this duality, good, bad, better, worse. So we were saying yesterday, in the face of divine love, senior, junior, equal, all become, everything is seen from that perspective. Again, it's beautiful, but it's challenging because we are then invited to see everyone else from that same place, right? It's not just, oh, how nice, I'm being seen according to my brightest future. Yes, how nice. But why don't you try to see everyone else according to their brightest future? It's a gradual process, but that's how we invoke heaven on earth, so to say. If we gradually start to relate to each other according to all that we can be, not to the mess that you still are, and I'm daily reminding you of how a failure you are, all these type of things that happen in human relationship. If we put that aside and learn to see each other who we actually are, we are closer and closer and closer to our ultimate goal. Because ultimately that's who we are, right? The soul is described as Tatastha Shakti. So Tatastha Shakti means, we could say, you are a unit of potential. You are, and all of us, a unit of potential. You are your potential. You are what you are, plus your potential. You cannot separate who you are from all that you can be. Try to stay with that koan for a moment.
Can you say the koan once more?
You are your potential.
You are what you are.
Yeah. Who you are is your potential. You are who you are plus your potential, but who you are is your potential. That what it means, Tatasta. You're a unit of becoming. No? You have to see yourself according to all that you can be. That was said even by Albert Einstein in scientific terms. You cannot analyze something separate from all that thing can be. You cannot just judge something. You are this in this particular state and chapter of your unfolding, but you have to bear in mind all the potential possibilities of that. That's also part of what that thing is. Even speaking in terms of matter, what to speak of the Atma. We are a unit of potential. We are potency, Shakti, Tatasta Shakti. Shakti means potency. Every potency has potential. You cannot, there is a potency without potential. That makes no sense. You cannot define an energy that is not energetic. You cannot define a potency that has no potential. So we have great potential. Of course, great potential means great responsibility to handle the potential. Because also we have a great potential to do horrible things. So our potential can be ever evolving, but also can be ever devolving. And there's no limit how low we can fall if we choose to go and explore that direction. Of course, I trust you are not here to explore those possibilities, because probably we already did quite a good excavation project for a few lifetimes in that direction. And we realized, wow, I have a potential to, in potential, we can become the worst of the worst. In potential. Just to be humbled ourselves. When we analyze our brightest potential is beautiful, but don't forget that if you choose to go explore some other direction, you can become, there's no limits how low we can fall. Again, not to create neurosis, but just to remain prudent. Not to take for granted our brightest potential. But to honor it, like Prabhupada was saying yesterday in the audio that Tribanga Prabhu shared, right? You remember you're dealing with Krishna. This is, be careful. This is serious stuff. Not to make everyone like neurotic, but just so we could say the same. Remember you are dealing with your potential. There's lots of power there. You have lots of power. So try to honor that. That power is not your own creation. So, and according again, in Krishna's eyes, you are seeing as someone who is amazing, interestingly. That's how Krishna defines the soul in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Chapter 2. In the beginning, he starts to describe the soul indirectly, negatively, what the soul is not. Because when you have to define something, you have to give some point of reference to give a clue about what you are talking about. No? If I'm telling to you, I will speak to you about a harmonium, but you never heard about what's a harmonium. So it's like, what's a harmonium? So I need to give you a point of reference. I may begin as a musical instrument. Okay, I know that point of reference. It's some kind of a keyboard. Okay, thank you for that point of reference. But when it comes to speak about the Atma, that's a categorically different substance than you cannot give any actual point of reference to compare it fully in this world. So Krishna starts saying what the Atma is not, basically. No, Atma doesn't die, it's not born, does not dry, it's not burned. We know all these verses. Chapter 2, verse 13 onward, basically 12 onward. So at one point, one may be asking, so Krishna, can you say something positive about what the Atma is? Because so far is what we are not. Sometimes we need to begin there because we need to deconstruct false ideas about who we are. So first, I remember reading Eric Fromm's The Art of Loving, and he describes what's love. But the first chapter is what's not love. So if you survive that first chapter, you will get to know what's love. But in the first chapter, basically, he's dethroning, deconstructing all the ideas of love that most of us may have. So what's not love? What's not the soul? Krishna resorts to that same via negative, as they will call in Christianity. Speak of something in negative terms. This is not. So when it comes to say something positive, who we are. Krishna, verse 29 of the second chapter of the Gita, Krishna has only one word to say, and he will say it 3 times, not enough to say it once. And the word is Ascharya. Ascharya, Ascharya, Ascharya. Ascharya means wonderful. Maybe you've heard that word from Krishna Chandra a few times per day. Wonderful. I always like to ask Krishna Chandra every morning I see him, how are you doing, Krishna Chandra? And I know what will be the reply, but it's ever fresh, right? Ever new. And it's really coming from a place of experience. It's not just wonderful in a casual way. Wonderful, full of wonder, right? So that's how Krishna sees us. He says, you are wonderful, Ascharya. No, in Sanskrit, Ascharya also can mean like miraculous. Can mean also like shocking. So Krishna is telling you, you are shockingly miraculous. You're amazingly wonderful. He says that 3 times. He could say it more than 3 times, but he has to say some other things in the Bhagavad Gita. He could just stay saying wonderful, wonderful. So I like to say sometimes, if we are walking, nobody generally says that to us. No. If we will be walking the street and someone tells us what, you are wonderful, we are like, I'm marrying that person. Right? Krishna is telling you that 3 times. And the most important person, you're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Of course, it's interesting because many times we do not believe that. We have a hard time accepting I'm wonderful. Many times many of our voices inside are more voices of toxic shame and things that push you down. You're worthless, you're unlovable. Wonderful? That must has been some editing mistake in the Bhagavad Gita edition you read. No? No. So we need to, there is a place for us to look at the mirror, so to say, and say, I'm wonderful. And not say that out of pride. It's just like, I'm wonderful, but I'm not my own creation. So I just happen to be wonderful. But again, everyone else as well. Because if not, we start to get closer to narcissism. I'm wonderful, I'm wonderful. And the rest, no, they are not wonderful. That verse of the Gita was with me in mind, Krishna. No. So we don't want to take that wonderfulness exclusively for ourselves. That's narcissism. But we don't want to scratch that verse from the Gita and in false humility deny, no. There's nothing wonderful in the Atma. No, it's not possible. That's also another side of the same toxic coin. So we have to be humbly accepting the Atma is wonderful, has a wonderful potential. And I have to honor that. I have to honor my own potential. As I like to say, I have a commitment to my potential. I have a deep, serious, profound commitment to all that I can be. And I will try to live my life honoring my potential. Because as I say, I can dishonor my potential and end up in many other ways. And I think we all have explored those lands. So now we are here, finally receiving a clear picture of what's our brilliant future. Again, in Srila Sridhar Maharaj's verse. I marked a few sections of my book, which quotes that I like to share a few quotes of Srila Sridhar Maharaj and a few others, but this one. He says, and again, you cannot argue with Srila Sridhar Maharaj. So once we encounter our soul, a diametrical change takes place in our life. At that moment, we are astonished to realize, oh, thank you. One more time. Oh, Aho. Remember, you still remember. Aho. Aho, such a highly qualified thing exists within me. What a wondrous existence I possess. Truly, I am the soul. And the nature of the soul is so noble, so high, so good. Oh. Beautiful. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. So that's what will happen when we truly contact ourselves for who we are. And again, who we are, we do not exist in isolation, of course. So we are never disconnected from Krishna. So there's never a chance to become proud and fall on myself and see myself as an isolated unit. I always exist in connection to my source. That's Sambandha. Everything is related, everything is interconnected. So we have a wondrous potential. Again, that should be in itself a deep source of wonderfulness, astonishment, humility. Many times humility is misunderstood as you should feel terrible about yourself. The worse you feel about yourself, the more humble you are being. No, that's a dysfunctional reading of humility. Siva Manjari looks happy.
Yes.
Okay. Do you agree? Okay.
Sure.
Mahaprabhu is saying, right? Be more humble than a blade of grass. Again, that line has been weaponized a lot. More humble than a blade of grass. Allow yourself to be walked upon, be the worst of the worst, and even abuse going on, be humble. Don't protest, then comes be more tolerant than a tree. Then we can create a whole cult out of those two lines if you misread them. We have to read them properly. So be humble like the blade of grass. I don't have a blade of grass here.
Behind you.
Just behind you.
The big
Okay.
one, yes.
I-
The plate, yes.
Okay, I won't take it out, but so this is a blade of grass. So be humble like the blade of grass. Bend like a blade of grass. How the grass bends? Bend like this, but whoop, without breaking. It's bending without breaking. So you should bend, be humble in a way that is not breaking you, right? In a way that is, I like this word, dignifying to yourself. So that's the art. How to be humble in a way that keeps my dignity. Dignifying? Yeah. How to say that in German? Okay. So, but Maharaj, now I present the Purva Paksha to myself, the opposing views. But Maharaj, we have this other verse. Jagai Madai Haite Muni Seva Pishta Purishera Kita Haite Muni Selagista. Purishera Kaite Muni. We were talking the other day in the table with some of us about that, trying to heal ourselves from some religious PTSD. PTSD, you understand in German? Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder. So there's religious PTSD. There's this line, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, the author says, I'm lower than the worm in the stool. So that's there in Shastra. You have to do something with that. What to do with that? Again, some will like to erase that verse, or some will take that verse in such a way that you end up in a psychiatric hospital or something. No, taking whips and starting a misery festival. So what does Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami say when he says, I'm lower than the worm in the soup? First, he's saying that. He's not saying you are. He's speaking for himself. We are not him. We cannot imitate him. We don't have a clue what was going on in his heart to say that. So first, we need to reach where he was, and then we may be able to. But there is a story in relation to this expression, which is, I would say, it's a cultural expression also. There's the resorting to some examples in certain particular time and culture that may not be the same we are accustomed to. So we may need to upgrade the analogy or update the analogy. But in that context, it meant there's this story of a disciple who wanted to accept the guru, prospective disciple, and this student was learned, but he was as proud as he was learned. Let's put it that way. So he went to his teacher, and the teacher could see or knew he had some pride to get rid of, for him to take full advantage of his potential as a soul. So the teacher say, okay, I will give you initiation, but I'll give you 7 days. Sorry?
To give me the verse of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is slightly different version, but maybe this is the same story. He will say, I want you to go out and find someone who is lower than you in every aspect. Maybe it's a different story, but it's okay. I hope we get the point. So this disciple thought in his pride, yeah, that will be easy. I don't need 1 week, 5 minutes, and I find someone who is lower than me in every aspect. I just go for a walk on the road, and that's what I thought. But, yeah. So that's the price to get initiated. Okay, so he goes, but somehow he goes serving the instruction of his guru. So already there is some Shakti transmission there that starts the process, alchemical process of transforming the heart of the disciple. So he goes trying to carry that instruction. So he looks at someone quickly, a human being, and say, okay, he's lower than me in this. And when he's about to conclude in every respect, he finds something that, oh, I'm lower than him in that respect. He has this quality that I don't have, whatever that may be. So still he starts seeing now something good by the grace of the guru. So, okay, next person, because I need to find someone. Still have 7 days, but I think I won't take 7 days. Still he's thinking like that. So second human being, even quicker he finds now, oh, that person has a virtue I don't have. Okay, it was not so easy as I thought. So the first day passes, he's not able to find anyone that is lower than him in every regard. So he goes to bed a little concerned. Still 6 days, but he thought, I will solve this in 5 minutes. Oh, so second day, similar thing happens. He's starting to see more and more virtues and qualities in people. But still he finds that as a problem, because that's getting in the way of getting what he wants. But without him realizing, he's becoming more qualified, actually, right? And then he feels, okay, it's not happening in the human kingdom. I'm always seeing some quality that some other humans have. Let's turn to the animal kingdom. That will be easier. You never know. Sometimes animals, you can find qualities in them quicker than some humans. So he goes to the animal kingdom, and the same thing starts to happen. Okay, this dog is lower than me, never. No, he's loyal to his master in a way I'm not as loyal. Like Krishna Chandra was telling me the other day, this example that Radhanath Swami gave, like a dog is waiting for his master, and no matter which clothes his master comes in, the dog will recognize. No. But sometimes we treat people like, I don't know, if I come with this cloth, oh, Maharaj. And don't do that, please, either. But just in case, I'm just giving. But if I come with shorts and like a t-shirt, it's like, what happened, Maharaj? Are you still keeping your vows? So who are you? You don't look so advanced. It's just a piece of cloth. No? So the dog won't get stuck in that. We get stuck in that. In this way, this disciple was learning from the animal kingdom now. So many qualities. Now, okay, let's move to the vegetable kingdom. Let's move to the mineral kingdom. He was exploring all the realms to fulfill his guru's instruction, right? So he's on the 7th day, last day. He's in deep anxiety. At the same time, he's paradoxically learning a lot and fulfilled, but still there is this thing that still he doesn't understand, which was the full intention of his guru. So he's feeling, I'm failing. I won't get initiated. I'm not finding anyone who's lower than me in every respect. Finally, at the last 5 minutes of the 7th day, he sees a worm in the stool. Remember the example we are talking about? Worm, lower than the worm in the stool. So he said, finally, Krishna is so merciful. He gave me a chance at the very last moment to find someone lower than me in every aspect. Here you have a worm in a stool. Can you think of something more abominable than that? No? You cannot even think about that for a few minutes. It's like, oh, this is disgusting. But his mind was acquiring enough some scars for the last 7 days to find virtue, actually, although he wanted to find the opposite, but he was somehow, by the grace and instruction of his guru, he always ended finding something good. So he thinks, okay, worm in the stool, the worst of the worst, but immediately it's like, no, because the worm is on the stool, but it's transforming the stool in compost.
Yeah.
I just eat food and create stool. Right? So I'm making the problem, and this guy is doing the solution to the problem, right? So to say. So he concludes, I'm lower than the worm in the stool. So that's it. That's a context. No? That's a cultural context in which this imaginary and expression comes. And of course, then he goes to his guru feeling very bad in terms of, I failed. I didn't fulfill the instruction. It has been 1 week, and he comes very much humbled than he was 1 week ago. So he tells his guru, I won't be able to receive your grace because I was not able to find anyone lower than me in every respect. And he says, that's what will qualify you to receive my grace. So he then understands, oh, okay. He is initiated at that point. No? So again, all this to say, no, humility has to be expressed in a healthy way. And I was saying that in the context of when you have a glimpse of who you actually are, of your bright potential as a soul, that's humbling in its own way. Because again, it's not your own creation. You cannot put your signature. I create this amazingness of the soul. No, you happen to be that, and it's so humbling. I think there is other quote in that regard that I want to share with you. Yeah, it's humbling because also you realize, as Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say, when you get closer to the infinite, there's no limit to how much progress you can make. I'll repeat the line again. It's its own kind of koan. As you get closer to the infinite, as you unpack your potential in bhakti in relation to the infinite, you will realize there is no limit to progress. You cannot colonize the infinite. Put a flag. Okay, I reach it. It's mine. So it becomes so humbling. It's endless prospect for growth and dedication. So it becomes so humble. You feel small, but in a healthy way. Like the example sometimes given in nature will be like here, you look these giant, beautiful mountains, and you're like, but not in any degrading way. You are in front of the ocean. Ooh. Or the other day we went with Udab to visit a Christian monastery, and they have like huge trees, but very tall. I always like to, in the US, we went to this redwood forest also, that the trees will be like, I don't know, my arms are not long enough to show the dimension of the tree. Not only the altitude, but how broad they are. It's like, and So you just stand there and I mean, you feel small. It's humbling, but it's inspiring at the same time. I'm part of something bigger than me. It's wonderful, exactly. So it's a humility full of wonder. That's ideal, as they say in English, that's a sweet spot. That's the ideal combination, right? It's there's wonder, there's humility, all of this happening at the same time. No. Not trying to superficially force yourself to be the worst of the worst. Because in that meditation, you are just thinking about yourself only. It's another form of self-centeredness and a very dysfunctional. Like once I say it, one disciple went to Srila Prabhupada. You tell it, Srila.
Disciple went to Srila Prabhupada and said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen." And Srila Prabhupada just looked at him and said, "You're not the most anything."
Thank you. I'm the most fallen of the fallen. You're not the most anything. Don't try to be the most anything. No? Oh, I cannot be the most advanced. Let me be the most fallen. But I want the most something title. You are who you are. Learn to accept yourself. And start on the foundation. You are amazing as a soul. And even if you don't have a full realization of who you are as an Atma, and you may say, no, in my current state of awareness, I'm not so amazing. Sometimes I think and feel and do very non-amazing things. Still, you have to accept that and begin from there and change whatever needs to be changed. Right? Carl Rogers, famous psychologist, he will say, paradoxically, change can only happen when there is full acceptance. If you really want to change something about you, you can only change that by first fully accepting where you are. You follow my point? If I'm a full mess and I want to stop being a full mess, first you have to accept that I'm a full mess. And from not to stay there forever, but to change on a realistic basis of where I am. No? Like Krishna saying in the Gita to Arjuna, you better perform your duty imperfectly than someone else's duty perfectly. So be who you are, whatever you are, as imperfect as that is, but be who you are as much as you can be. Again, in terms of temporary nature, no, we may still have some identification with that. We cannot just press a button and I'm on the amazing level of the Atma automatically. So we still are integrating complexity, as we were talking yesterday with Krishna Chandra, integration of complexity. That's our journey on a daily basis. I like to refer to simplicity as that. The devotees describe as saralata, or the devotee is simple. But simplicity means integration of complexity. If not, you are just being simplistic. To be simple and being simplistic is not the same thing. Being simplistic is being lazy, being evasive, being complacent. Being simple means you're integrating so many layers of complexity in a very beautiful way. That's called simplicity. So anyhow, we are confronted with unlimited potential, with unlimited chances for progress, and that should fill us with humility. This is what I want to share again from Srila Sridhar Maharaj in this connection. We are always situated within infinite possibility. I mean, that's the first sentence. I could stop there and we can just remain the rest of this week. Thank you.
Can you repeat, please?
We are always situated within infinite possibility. Always. Always there is, along with you, your potential, infinite possibility. Therefore, our prospect, life after life, cannot be finished so easily. Another way of saying cannot be finished. There's an infinite prospect. A seeker who is after the truth will search after newer and newer planes. And that means living and accommodating new experiences. Again, integration of complexity. We are to become more and more accommodating, more and more earnest, more and more eager. Progress means leaving our former position and going on to something else. And that happens many times per day. It's not just one time, right? It's an eternal process. Only one who is hopeful of a brighter future, and this is the person who told us you have a bright future. Only one who is hopeful of a brighter future can leave his formal position and advance. I'll read again the last line because Trivanga Prabhu liked that. Only one who is hopeful of a brighter future can leave his formal position and advance. If I feel that my future is horrible and terrible, I will freeze and won't move. But if I have a clear hope that my future is brilliant, I will be able and willing to advance and leave behind my current situation. Which leaving behind my current situation is a form of death, if you will. A new life, and death, and new life, and death, and new life. Leave my formal position doesn't mean necessarily leave your job or leave your husband or leave anything. It's an inner constant releasing of some level, some conception, and embracing a new one. And tomorrow, a new one. Mritya, Amrita, Mritya, Amrita. As I put in my book, interestingly, we use the word Amrita for life or eternal life or nectar, Amrita. But Amrita includes the word Mritya, which means death. So you want eternal life, death, a certain type of death has to be happening for you to attain a rebirth, a resurrection, whatever word we want to use. That's how Srila Siddha Maharaj will describe progress, basically. It's a succession of births and deaths and births and deaths on a daily basis. Sarvupadi vinirmuktam. Tatparattvena nirmal. Shastra says, Sarvupadi vinirmuktam. I once remember seeing a video from Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Maharaj explaining that verse. That was very interesting, very powerful. It must be there somewhere. So Sarvopadi Vinirmukta means to totally get rid of all upadis or all false designations or false sense of self. And again, it's a gradual process. And he will explain Sarva Upadi, all upadis, Vinirmuktam. So mukta means to be free from all relative designations. And then he will say, but this verse doesn't say muktam. No, that says binirmuktam. And nirmuktam means to utterly get free of all that. But this verse doesn't say nirmuktam, it says binirmuktam. Which means like to be willing to die completely to all that no longer represents our potential. Right? Again, we have infinite potential. So today you may have reached, if you are very honest and sincere, today you have reached the maximum of your potential for August 18th, 2025. Great. We'll celebrate in the evening, chocolate cake, everything. Look, Shamasundari, how she's smiling now. But tomorrow, a new level of potential is waiting for you. And you need to die to the previous achievement from the last, not to die, I mean, it will be included, but you need not to hold on to that like, okay, this is forever. No, a new level and a new chocolate cake to celebrate that evening.
I'll make one if you want.
Okay, why not? But we have to live today in a way that we are achieving our highest potential for today. If not, the cake is not justified. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say in his own words, today's perfection is tomorrow's imperfection. Again, not to be again neurotic. Oh, I know whatever I attain today, tomorrow is not enough, and it's never enough. Not from that place, but just like again, love is always expanding. Love is always extending a new invitation. Krishna is always playing his flute. It's not like he played the flute once. I call him a new invitation. You follow the invitation, okay? No more call, no more invitation, nothing new to experience. He's always there. You will never see a deity of Krishna like this. I already played the flute so many times, invited you, you didn't come, or you came, but it's game over. Every time a new invitation. And every time a new invitation to die to something, even in the spiritual world. Not only for us here, but for a fully liberated, for the Nitya Siddha gopis, let's put it that example. Every time Krishna plays his flute, that's an invitation to die on a new level and to be born on a new level of dedication. It's not that they have an artas or stuff like that, but still the dedication can always grow. So they have to die to their previous version of themselves to discover a new version in their endless potential. And they're willing to do that, of course. That's what implies the call of the flute. Krishna is calling generally at night. There is darkness, there is mystery, there is uncertainty. The gopis do not care for any of that. They just run behind the flute call. They are willing to leave all these other things behind to upgrade their dedication to Krishna. Die to live. Yeah. In Hegel's words, Srila Siddhar Maharaj will quote that so many times. Die to live. And yesterday we were quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Mangalananda, in all these places, the Vaishnava dies to live, dies to. That's not something that happens one time. That's an ongoing pattern that defines how reality operates. An ongoing, endless succession of births and deaths. And one union and separation. You can think of union and separation as the same. You're meeting Krishna again, birth. You're in separation, it's a form of death. But in that death, you rediscover Krishna eventually as a more beautiful person. You rediscover yourself as a unit of dedication that goes deeper now. That's a very principle of anuraga, right? And I quote Krishna Chandra Prabhu here about anuraga, just in case. All copyrights to Krishna Chandra Prabhu in his commentary on Radha Sri Radha Kripa Kataksha Stotra. Beautiful. Damayanti sent me that file confidentially. We don't tell them. Technology can facilitate some translations. So yeah, there we are talking. There he's talking about the principle of anuraga, which paradoxically means Radha and Krishna are together, and they are separated after a few seconds, and they, in one way, you could say, you no longer recognize your beloved because each one became new now. Their love upgraded, they attain a new level of beauty and dedication. So Radha will be in separation from Krishna after 5 seconds. She has to take a distance, and she's asking Lalita, who is that beautiful blue sapphire boy walking? And Lalita is, that's Shyam Sundar. You've been with him 5 seconds ago. No, it cannot be. It's something different. Because Krishna already became more beautiful after 5 seconds. So, and Radha's love became more loving. So both are upgrading. Again, the competition never ends. They are constantly rediscover themselves. So that requires a type of dying and a new birth to rediscover each other. That happens in every relationship, actually. If this sounds too esoteric, just come back to earth and think of, I don't know, Kanupriya, think of your relationship with your husband. You were talking about your husband the other day. We all know already that you love Krishna more than him. That's fine. You have made that public, so I'm not saying anything new here. But still, for your relationship with him to be sustainable, you have to rediscover one another in time. If you are just always in the same place, both, it's unsustainable. So you have, each one has to die to a version of yourself, and the other to give permission to a new version to emerge. That's how relationships work, basically. Any relationship, including our relationship to the divine. Hmm?
But that's amazing. And
Wonderful.
yeah,
Aho.
no, before I was just thinking, yeah, it's a mood from Srimati Radhika, so that she sees Krishna as someone she didn't met, but actually really likes it.
Hmm.
It's
It's too much, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we have to be willing to, even if all of us have an experience of Radha and Krishna in our life and bhajan, and that's real and that's beautiful, you have to be willing to let go of that to discover a new experience. Because if you get too attached to an older version, so to say, you may then expect them to appear in that older version, but they are already someone new. You follow my point? And you may feel, oh, Radha and Krishna disappear from my life. No, they never disappear. You're just expecting them to appear in an outdated version. And you are not keeping up with the pace of their own updating, so to say. And I'm speaking one more thing, sorry. And this is in terms of an experience, what to speak of ideas, because sometimes we have more ideas about Krishna than experiences of Krishna. And our ideas can get in the way, as we talked the other day, I think, our ideas of God can get in the way of our experience of the person, of the relationship. Now, Father Richard Rowe will say beautifully, he says, interestingly, going back to the experience, he say, my previous experience of God is the greatest obstacle to my next experience of God. Interesting. I see it one more time. My previous experience of God is the greatest obstacle to the next experience of God. Follow my point? I mean, my previous experience of God was beautiful, great, incredible, life transforming. But if I get too attached to that, it gets in the way of the next experience. Right? It's like if I go to my mom and tell her, Mom, my experience as a baby with you was so incredible, it was the best of the best. I'm always relishing that, and I'm always thinking of that's our relationship. It's just like, dear son, you are 44 years old now. Life moves. We have to relate from another place. No, I cannot change your diapers anymore. No. Hopefully, you are not using diapers. You follow? If you become too nostalgic and addicted to something that is already part of the past, it starts to become stagnated and dysfunctional. So it's always an eternal present. Right? Well, we talk about brightest future, all that happens in the here and now. So in the here and now, Radha and Krishna are always inviting us for a new level of relationship. Every time you sit for japa, for kirtan, or every time you leave, do whatever you do, it's healthy to be aware. Okay, every moment is a new invitation for a new level of relationship. That's their generosity and their love and their dynamics, and that's our potential. Priya, what are you thinking about?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that actually it just makes me very happy because I was reflecting on this subject. Sometimes japa is so alive, and yeah, Radha Krishna are really close, and then there are times where japa is so dry, and usually then I get very sad and disappointed, and what you just explained could actually fill me with joy and happiness, because if it's dry, then I know this is just before the next level of meeting. And I never saw it that way, and actually we could see it that way. Oh, it's so dry, but wow, that's just the in-between.
We have to celebrate that with a chocolate cake today. Another one, because one more was already promised. We have two already. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that's how it is actually. But sometimes we need to get to understand it properly. So what was the cause of not enthusiasm can be understood from another place of, oh, I don't need to be depressed or feel bad about myself, but now I understand it from another place, right? Yes, I like to say sometimes whether in our job or in our life, we may feel, oh, Krishna has disappeared from my life. But sometimes I like to say, no, he's actually getting closer. He's so close that you lost sight of him. Because he's not a cruel guy that will run away in a bad way. Of course, sometimes he may disappear, play hide and seek, like Patrak said, or like Seva Manjari was quoting the Bhagavatam, why he disappeared from the Rasa Lila. He said, the Gopis, to increase, because I love you, he told them, basically. That's very interesting, because I love you, and if you love someone, you want the best for them, and the best for you is to increase your love. And I knew that in separation from me, your love will increase. So that's why I disappear, because I love you. But many times he's getting, I mean, even when he disappears, he's getting closer, right? Try to think paradoxically in this way. Even if Krishna is hiding, he's not getting far away from us. It's all with the purpose of further intimacy. So no matter, of course, the Upanishads say Krishna, God is Brahman, the absolute is the one who is the closer to the closest, and the one who is more far away than everything. So I read that verse like, if you want Krishna to be the farthest person in your life, he will honor that. And you will feel him very far away. If you want him to be the close of the closest, he will be that, because he is that. So yeah, sometimes when Krishna is getting so close that it's difficult for us to imagine that Krishna can get so close to us. So because we cannot imagine that, we think, oh, he's getting far away from me. But he's getting closer, closer, closer. Yeah. As they say in English, too good to be true. Right? So sometimes we fail to imagine that because it's too much, too incredible, too beautiful, too sweet, too graceful. And we end up concluding something else. Because even our wildest imagination cannot think of that. Because it goes beyond that. Dokshaya. Dokshaya is the name of Krishna, which basically means he who lies beyond your wildest imagination. Adhokshaya. Like you can think and imagine, but you can only imagine things based on your experience. And Krishna is always beyond us. Some other question? Can Priya share something? Someone would like to share something? Krishna Chandra Prabhu, any inspirations? Not necessarily a question. You can share. Some of you seem like in a shock state. Krishna does seems like, yeah, I don't know. I'm concerned. I don't want anyone to.
I'm just
What's
really attempted to listen, because this is like mind blowing what you're speaking today. It's so epic.
so happy to know that your mind is blowing.
Adokshaya is for us here, but also for the associates in the spiritual world.
What do you mean?
What you said, that it's beyond, that's for us, but it's also for the gopis, for the Rani, it's also that principle also transferred.
Still, I don't understand the question.
What the
That
definition
he's
of
beyond the
adhokshaya?
senses, adhokshaja.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You said before, but you were speaking about us.
And I was saying Krishna is beyond our capacity to Adokshaya is the name of Krishna, which means he who is beyond the mind, the senses, our imagination.
Yeah, beyond our wildest
Yeah,
imagination.
yeah, yeah.
So I said this counts for us. We think that like he's beyond
Uh-huh.
mind,
Yeah.
but also gopi would think like that or that.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
say,
I mean, Krishna himself thinks like that about himself.
yeah,
Krishna is beyond his wildest imagination. There's one verse in the Bhagavatam that Krishna says, I don't know the limits of my glories. I cannot fathom them. Basically, Krishna is saying, I'm too much. That's basically Sri Chaitanya, Mahaprabhu trying to explore Radha's heart, and it's all ongoing discovery. Jagannath Prabhu.
The soul is so amazing that this is humbling.
No, you start this sentence saying, I am so amazing, because you are the soul. I know it's difficult, it's cringing, but we have to enter into that space.
Because I'm not my own creation.
Oh,
I'm Krishna's creation.
yeah.
But I was thinking about that and came to the realization that Krishna never made himself to be Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't perform tapasya, or as Prabhupada said in the first, or during the introduction to Krishna book, that Krishna is not made in a spiritual fabric.
Factory. Yeah.
Factory, exactly. So Krishna never started as dishwasher and worked himself up the ladder of the Karriereleiter career, and then finally became Krishna.
PhD,
Yes.
Krishna.
So Krishna is Krishna. So in one sense, one could say that Krishna, by his transcendental, ever-present mercy, he is Krishna by his own. There is no difference between Krishna's beingness, and his mercy.
Mm-hmm.
And he himself is merciful to himself. So, and therefore Krishna is, as we are parts of Krishna, we are creations of Krishna. And
Not creations, the soul is not created.
Not in this sense, but we are.
Just to clarify, no, because
of Krishna, the aspect of Krishna, and this is very humbling. So Krishna, I think in this way, one could say that Krishna is humbled by himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And therefore he's not attached to anything. He's not attached to climb up the ladder of how to say a career or something like that.
There's no need to play that game. There's no need to play that game for him, and when we understand that, there's no need to play that game for us either.
Yes.
And that's such a huge relief, like, because I don't need to become, what I am is already amazing. What Krishna is already amazing. I said, we'll see, I think tomorrow, even speaking about material energy, even the world of matter is amazing in its own way. So ultimately, everything is amazing. If we have the proper perspective, and the only thing that remains is to be at awe and wonder and celebrate and honor and try hopefully to extend that vision to those who are missing that particular perspective, no? Which is us at times, of course. It's not that I am fully always seeing that. So sadhana in many ways is reminding myself about what everything is. No? That's why we meet every day, we share, we talk, because probably, as Krishna Chanda said, we are closer to stones than to sponges. No? So after 2 hours, again, it's quite sunny, so the stone gets dry very quickly, and so gradually become a lot more sponge-like. But yeah, Krishna is who he is. As in the Bible, God describes himself, I am who I am. That's an interesting way of defining who you are. You could say the same. Who are you? I am who I am. No, you cannot. Other things may become designations. So I am who I am. I'm a unit of potential. Yeah. Patrag, you were raising your hand?
Yes, I want to go back to the very beginning of today's.
Okay.
About looking at persons in a different way according to your understanding.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And you said we have to do basically a background around persons to look at fundamentals.
Pariprashnena sevaya. Yeah, sorry.
And I thought about the verse that you mentioned in terms of who is awake, who is asleep.
Yeah.
So my version is that the people who worked so hard fell asleep, and the ones that were lazy are the ones that are awake.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely opposite of what you said. But I guess I should see the context with the rest of what the teaching is.
Yeah.
I just thought I don't know why it came out of the opposite person.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, sometimes Shastra is kalpa-vriksha, no? So the scripture can satisfy all desires and you go with certain mindset, and you will find a confirmation. Like we were talking with Krishna Chandra the other day about how Krishna the Gita says, I'm nourishing faith for whatever you want to attain. Because if you have no faith, you won't do anything. So doesn't mean that whatever, because I'm
cheating you.
Yeah, yeah, doesn't mean that because I'm being instrumental in that, what you are doing is the best thing. But if not, you cannot do anything. So, but yeah, it's all context also, Patra. So I explained that verse as an isolated example, but again, that's not an isolated example. That verse comes in a chapter inside a book, and that book actually is part of another book, right? Because Bhagavad Gita is inside the Mahabharata, and that's a chapter, and there's a particular context. So scripture has to also always be understood in context. A text out of context becomes a pretext. So, but I appreciate what you say about the parikram part, because I mentioned that in my book. Let me read this section because it's an interesting idea. We are talking about here, regarding what we are talking about, the soul has endless potential. How serious we should be in exploring that potential? How committed we should be in our inquiry for the truth? Atato Brahma Jignasa, right? Well, what I'm going to read is about the Chaturshloki of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He has just said one part of the last one. So says, in this context, well, I'm saying other things, of course. I'm saying if each of us has the potential to continuously hear about God and attain ever new love at every moment, this underscores the soul's unending potential. In this context, sorry, the last of the 4 seed verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam declares that due to the inexhaustible nature of the subject, sorry, one earnestly seeking the ultimate truth, now comes a quote from that verse, must indeed seek it in its entirety, under all circumstances, across every dimension of time and space, both directly and indirectly. That's Ambaya Byatireka Vyanjatyat Sarvatra Sarvada. This, and going back to what you say, Patrak, about the parikram, doing parikram around something, which is beautiful. This multi-dimensional approach, it's multi-dimensional, time, space, directly, indirectly. That shows how seriously you are looking for the truth. This multi-dimensional approach resonates with the Bhagavad Gita's concept of pariprashna, 434, right? One of the 3 duties of the student, pariprashna. Sometimes it's translated as inquire humbly from Guru, which is totally fine. It's right. But pariprashna emphasizes questioning. Prashna means questioning in a manner that is all around. Pari. So pari means like all around. Like when we do parikram, kram means steps, and pari means all around, like to circumambulate something. So I'm not seeing one, like if I'm looking at Damayanti, here's one angle. But if I do parikram, I'm discovering all the other perspectives, right?
Which was it in the Bhagavad Gita?
434. It says pariprashnena in the verse, but the word separates pariprashna. So the 2 more paragraphs, because I'm just reading this because it's so much interesting, confirming to what you are saying without reading this. So that's the interesting part for me. The prefix pari suggests thoroughness. How to translate that into German? Thoroughness? To be thorough? Yeah. An in-depth engagement with the subject from every angle, leaving no fact unexplored. Again, this is not merely intellectual, it's just a passionate inquiry. Such inquiry is not merely intellectual. Okay, I already said. But an act of reverence, similar to parikram, the circumambulation of a sacred site, where one physically and spiritually honors the sacred by engaging with it from all sides. Last sentence. Similarly, pariprashna embodies a sacred inquiry that encircles its subject with devotion and respect, seeking to honor the ever-expanding nature of truth through exhaustive and heartfelt inquiry. So, anyhow, I find reading that because you were speaking about all the things, and for me it's always very mystical when someone comes with something and, oh, you're also reached that idea of pariprashna parikram. So it's a beautiful meeting point. and how so many new perspectives are always there to discover. I'm thinking, since I mentioned parikram, and which implies circumambulating something with honor and respect. In our tradition, for example, we have Govardhan parikram, among many other parikram, walking around the sacred hill Giriraj, which will give you, of course, a different perspective than just going and bowing to one part of Giriraj and leaving. But a few years ago, 2 years ago, I received a very interesting invitation by a friend, Jai Jagannath Prabhu. He told me, Maharaj, we are planning to do a Dandavat Parikram to Govardhan. Would you like to join us? And I dared to say yes. So for those who do not know what's a Dandavat, do you all know what's a Dandavat Parikram? Okay, so you are not circumambulating by walk, by falling like a rod to the ground. That takes a little bit more time. More physical effort, as you can imagine, and more mental effort, because mind gets a little bit narrow like that. But my point with this is that I already had done parikram to Govardhan walking. It was beautiful, but doing that from the floor, that gave me another perspective. No? So another angle. Sarvatra sarvada. No, yatsyat sarvatra. From all places, from all. So, and it was very beautiful to circumambulate Giriraj, being lower than a blade of grass, literally. Because the blade of grass can be like this, and I was here. No? So you, after 2 weeks, you get accustomed to see the world like everything is there and I'm here. No? And so, wow, I never saw the world from that perspective. That's interesting. So that was a new discovery also, right? Form of parikram, form of pariprashna, inquiry, rediscovering. So that's the humility, the vision that humility gives when it's healthy, full of wonder. Mm-hmm. We were 25 in the group, so that was also nice because I was not the only one there. I had others next to me, and we all were like. Srila Siddhar Maharaj will say that. He will say, the spiritual realm means you are entering into a world where everything is made of a higher substance than yourself. Vaikuntha Prithiviyadi Sakala Chinmay. From Vaikuntha upwards, even the land, the soil is higher than... Yes, transcendental substance. Yeah. So he will say, you can only enter that place offering pranam to everything. So he will give the image, you won't be walking on your feet in the spiritual world. You will be walking with your head on the ground and with your feet up. Because everything is not literally, it will be a little impractical for the dynamics of the lila to be like, but in spirit, everything is venerable. So that Govardhan Parikram gave me like a glimpse of that. How does it look to a trailer of eternity?
You wanted to say something, right?
No, I didn't want to say. I want to ask something, but it's really not related to the subject matter. I will ask you after the class.
Okay.
You think?
Yeah, so we keep the
Yeah.
topic.
It doesn't.
We will have time for in the evening, also later after the class, whatever. Yeah. Any other sharing related to the topic, though there were many topics inside the topic? Krishna Chandra, please.
Thought. There is in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, Nasate vidyate bhavo. So that what is changing, what is asat, and normally it's translated changing. That what is asat, not eternal. Vidyate, please know it very careful. It has abhav, it has no existence. And then he goes on, na bhavo, but there is no non-existence. Vidyate sata. Know it very clearly in the eternal, there is no non-existence. That what is sat. And many translated unchanging. So, and now the interesting thing is there is all the dimension of the Leela Raj is in the level of Sat. But still there is like change at every moment. So if one can think sometimes too shallow and we would end with Brahman. That what is has never any dynamic in becoming new, becoming different. Then it's a boring, static realm. So I was just thinking of that, it's how beautiful it is, because we are burned out with constant changes in the Asat realm. It's hard, everything, all the houses are decaying and our health is constantly in a dilemma, and so we just want static from that point, but it needs to be understood that there is change, there is Nava Yova Natva, ever freshness, every new development in eternity. It needs quite a basis of, it's like a new thought. So that's why I'm so grateful for that. Like the whole idea.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually address that. I bring that, no, it's not an opposing argument, but it's naturally, we hear even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna said many times, the soul is changeless. And God is changeless. And yes, but also ever evolving at the same time. So then how to accommodate the two, and in which sense Krishna is changeless? Yeah, Krishna is changeless. He always is Krishna. That doesn't change about him. He's always loving. He's always merciful. That doesn't change about him. That's changeless. And he's ever evolving. That's changeless about him. He's always evolving his experience of love. That doesn't change. In the same way, the Atma is changeless. Is is eternal, is beyond the changes of the body and so on. But Jiva Goswami, when he describes the qualities of the Atma in Paramatma Sandarbha, he says Jiva is changeless, and Jiva has endless potentiality, which again sounds contradictory. Achintya Bhed Abhed, right?
Purana Novayam.
Yeah. And Rupa Goswami, the same. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we say Krishna is changeless. 64 qualities. One, changeless. Two qualities after, Nitya Nutana. He's ever fresh. Okay. He's inviting us to think paradoxically. Paradox holds the most truth. Black and white thinking can only hold one color or the other. Paradoxical thinking can, again, accommodating, as we read Srila Siddhar Maharaj, more accommodating. You can harmonize, reconcile what on a lower level is a contradiction. So, yeah, the very words of the spiritual realm, I don't know, Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means no limits. So there are no limits. So many things can happen there. There can be changelessness and ever freshness because there are no limits. Now, Braj. Braj means to move. To move. To indicate some movement, some growth. It's not static changelessness. So, but yeah, I totally agree with your reflection on how those of us exhausted from toxic change, so to say, we need some security, some foundation, something that stays the same. But so we think, okay, I'm leaving this problem of constant change and going to the non-change realm. But that in itself can create its own problem, at least according to our perspective. You can have eternal boredom from the Gaudiya perspective. Right? Because still you can go there and there's a place in eternity for Brahman. It's not our cup of tea, but that's there, to be fair enough. But yeah, it's important that we can accommodate spiritual world is changeless and ever evolving at the same time.
You say that it's not a contradictory in a way that the quality doesn't change, but just the quantity. Like Krishna's always has the quality of all attractive, but it just gets more and more. But the quality itself.
I would say the quality also. Yeah,
because there's new qualities.
Exactly. Yeah, quantity and quality, deeper and broader. But still there is some unchanging principles sustaining all that. Actually, you need something very changeless to be a basis and a foundation for all this unfolding of the Lila. Again, you hear the Lila of Krishna, and as I was telling the other day with a group of devotees, we are having Navadvip Parikram in a few months, and we are sharing the Astakaliya Lila of Mahaprabhu and Nitya Navadvip. So what's he doing on the 8 periods of his eternal day? And basically, you hear each period, and it seems that every day he does the same in those periods, or approximately the similar. So again, it may sound like boring if there is not an ever newness and freshness in terms of the inner experience. Now imagine if I tell you okay, you will go to eternity, and here you have the time schedule for eternity. From 3:36 to 6, you do this. From 6 to 8:24, you do this. From 8:24 to 10:48, you do this. And that will be like that forever. Probably you're like, I think I'm staying here. It's more dynamic here, more change, more surprise. No. That changeless, and quote unquote changeless, is not always the same, but some general structure is there to facilitate an experience of ever freshness and ever newness, right? So,
Anantadas Babaji is even saying whole Ashtakali Leela is just a one day in the life. There is doesn't mean that there is a similarity in the next day.
Exactly. Probably Yeah, I will agree that there may be some structure.
elements.
No, Mahaprabhu will sleep, will eat, will engage in Sankirtan, but yeah, it doesn't need to be literally take, like the same with the Bhagavatam, right? We go to the 10th canto, we say, okay, this is Krishna Lila. That's just one drop.
Sample.
That's a sample of Krishna Lila. Then you read Gopal Champu, like, oh, all this is not in the Bhagavatam. Yeah, that's an extension of the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is not only those chapters that we know. Bhagavatam is the life story of God. So you read Gopal Champu, you read Lalita Madhi, all these other books are further samples of something that has no limit. So we should be very careful not to put Krishna Lila in a box and say, here it begins, here it ends, that's how it happens, always the same. Okay.
I have a question.
Gandharvika?
I ask in German, yeah?
Yeah.
And you translate? Es knüpft ein bisschen daran an, wie er gerade das zum Gorlila ausgeführt hat, dass die Veränderung nicht unbedingt äußerlich sichtbar ist in der Beschreibung des Lilas, sondern dass sich das ja innerlich vollzieht.
So it refers a little to what you just said about Gaur Lila, that the change refers not only to the structure, but only to the like an invisible moods that are there.
Und ich habe mich gefragt, weil ich glaube, am ersten Tag haben wir auch gehört, dass ja das Radha Krishna Lila sozusagen sich ausweitet in das Gaur Lila.
On the first day we discussed how Radha Krishna Lila is like exploding, expanding and becomes Gaur Lila.
Und wenn wir jetzt so darüber hören, dass das ja etwas ist, was nie aufhört, also diese Ausweitung, auch die Ausweitung der Liebe zwischen Radha und Krishna, die ihre Ausdehnung ins Gaur Lila sozusagen hineinnimmt, dann habe ich mich gefragt, wie geht da die Ausweitung weiter? Also eröffnet sich daraus heraus wieder ein neues Lila? Oder ist das etwas, was sich wirklich innerlich, so wie er gerade beschrieben hat, unendlich ausweitet im Erleben zwischen Gauranga und Gadada und allen Beigesellten?
So when Raj Lila, Radha Krishna Lila just expands and becomes Gaur Lila. So she said, I just ask myself, what about the expansion in Gaur Lila? Is it like exploding and gives another dimension, another Lila? Or is it, how we just described, like in the Ashtakali Lila of Gauranga, like a certain structure is the same, but the moods are always expanding.
Und auch, oder schwappt es so wie hin und her? Also, dass sich sozusagen das Radha, also dass das Radha Krishna Lila wie davon berührt wird und dadurch auch wieder eine Entfaltung und erfährt und wieder zurück spielt ins Gaur Lila. Also das wäre ja auch eine Möglichkeit.
Or is it swapping like back and forth? Now, sometimes Gauranga is so absorbed if it's associated and really they take Braj Lila Swarup. Then suddenly the Vrindavan Lila gets extremely enhanced by Gaur Lila, and then Braj Lila is again swapping over to become a Gaur Lila, or is it like this?
Krishna Das mind is exploding 10 times more now. He needs a medical assistant very soon. We're losing someone here. Yeah, in brief, I will say, yeah, I agree with what she said. You said at the end, because in one sense, Gaur Lila is. I know it's difficult to understand it from here because we think in terms of Gaur Lila, Krishna Lila, like two places, two identities. It may sound like bipolar, but it's one Lila expressed. No, so our acharyas have not said like, okay, Krishna Lila explodes in Gaur Lila and then Gaur Lila explodes in something else that we don't know how it's called. I'm not here to limit the unlimited, but we will argue that there is enough stuff going on there already as to require like always a new lila. In one sense, it's a new lila in itself. And of course, when we say Gaur Lila explodes, Krishna Lila explodes into Gaur Lila, that never, for us, never happened in time. No, it exists eternally. I explained that in that way just to make the connection between Krishna Lila and Gaur Lila. But yeah, if you read a little bit of the dynamics of Gaur Lila, you see how Mahaprabhu is. I can read if you want something of that, but we can go we will end up somewhere else. But it's basically describing on a daily basis how Mahaprabhu gets absorbed in the corresponding time he's in Gaur Lila, what's going on in the Krishna Lila at that time. He's absorbed in that, and Swarup Damodar starts to sing Kirtan, depicting the Krishna Lila. And Mahaprabhu enters in Radha Bhav, and all the associates of Mahaprabhu enter into their own identities in Vrindavan and accompany him there. And after some time, the Kirtan is over. Mahaprabhu roars, and everyone returns to external consciousness, as they may call it, external. Again, it's a Dokshaya on one level. We cannot just capture it here. Krishnadas is trying his best, but put pause there because I'm seeing smoke coming from your ears, which is good. It's a good exercise to make your faculties collapse and realize, wow, there's something beyond that. That's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur will say certain things can only be understood in samadhi. No, we can talk as much as we can. We can think as much as we can. Then go and enter into meditation, prayer, samadhi, and everything else will be revealed. No, there. Like someone asked Srila Prabhupada different things. No, but some devotee was asking too many details about the lila and how it happens in this and that way, and Krishna is living this distance, and he goes every day to this place. How he does, because I measured the distance between those two places, and it takes too many. He was here, right, trapped in this part. And Prabhupada replied, like, why don't you go there and find it for yourself? Right, like, go there, enter the lila, and everything will be solved. Anyhow. Yes.
I just know you created in me now very beautiful visualizations also, and like realizations, just because it was so inspiring to listen to all this. I was also seeing how the soul, every soul is a fragment of Vaikuntha, no? So like Vaikuntha planets are unchanging, the Vaikuntha planets are unchanging, but still they are ever increasing. They are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. And in a sense, can we not say that just like a pure devotee also, he has such a beautiful service, because what he's doing is he actually he comes to this world and he's collecting these Vaikuntha fragments, us, to make the Vaikuntha planets larger, to expand them more, to build the Vaikuntha, so to say.
Yeah.
Although it's already unchanging.
Yeah,
like,
I wouldn't call us fragments of Vaikuntha.
just like
I get the intention, but to be accurate in the expression.
way, it's like,
Yeah, okay.
like sometimes said that like this Chintamani stone, no? Stone there is also Krishna conscious. It's also stone is also devotional. So in a sense, we are all in a way like this. Like Krishna has made out of love for Krishna and Goloka especially.
Yeah, but we are not made out of love of Krishna. That's a long conversation, but the soul has no inherent, in my opinion, and according to Shastra, in my interpretation, we are not made of prem. We are not ragatmikas. So that's why I'm trying to be accurate with the expression. Rupa Goswami speaks of raganuga bhakti and ragatmika bhakti. So ragatmika means the ragatmikas are those whose atma is made of raga, whose self is made of love. We are not in that category. We are tatastha shakti. We can enter under the influence of bhakti and become raganuga bhaktas, following, but and attain eventually a spiritual identity and all that. That's in our potential. But it doesn't mean that we have that. We have the inherent potential.
Start with we are our potential.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Mhm.
That's my point. Why I had
Yeah.
like
You haven't, yeah, but you have potential for so many other things also.
Yes.
So technically speaking, again, it's a long conversation and we have gone in many directions. Those interested, my first book is all about this topic. I don't want to sound self-referential, but it's a long exploration. But we have potential to love Krishna, but that doesn't mean we have love for Krishna.
Okay. So there's no bhakti in the soul.
Well, okay, he was bold enough to say directly. There's no bhakti in the Atma. I'm confusing you with that one. That's another conversation. That's what I say. It's fine. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just saying what the scriptures say. Shastra doesn't confirm that there's bhakti inherent in the Atma. Bhakti is the essence of Swarup Shakti. We are Tatastha Shakti. We are not Swarup Shakti. There's no Bhakti Shakti in the Tatastha Shakti.
Because if there would be bhakti, Swarup Shakti Radhika, there would be no possibility
of Maya.
Of ignorance. Of Maya.
Exactly. If I already have bhakti, what to speak if I already have prem? So why I'm not rolling on the ground in ecstasy crying all day? We'll say, oh, because that prem is covered by Maya. How can prem be covered by Maya? That's nonsense. That's a very dangerous philosophy, which basically says if you reach to the spiritual world, you can fall from there, which is another conversation. With some other devoted thing like that, of course.
This was one thing which just came up in my mind, this very conversation. And for me, I already came to the conclusion that it is both. That it must be both. Because you said also this achintya, everything in the spiritual dimension is achintya actually. So it's like a paradox, and the paradox includes both. So
not necessarily, not in every sense, because for example, I cannot say Krishna exists and he does not exist. Doesn't make sense. So we have to be very accurate how we play out this type of expressions. Yeah. But does it mean that he does not exist?
No, it's just that he denies these paradoxes.
Non-being actually as sat has to do with temporarily, not necessarily. Anyhow, that's another conversation. But we can continue talking after. But again, even when I'm trying to share my thoughts, it's not my intention to hopefully disturb anyone's faith. And I'm sure that some of the things may be new for some of you, and some of you may have different thoughts about this, and it's fine. I'm not in any.
Satsang means also the readiness for being shocked.
Of course, and the openness to entertain different ideas that may conflict with our prevailing views, whether we end up accepting them or not, but the openness to be exposed to different perspectives that were not entertained before, right? Yeah. As long as the conversation is in a respectful and commonsensical way, of course, right? So
just one thing more.
Yeah.
But the Kanavika brought up there is Narayan Maharaj, he speaks sometimes on this, that even, of course, all the leelas we have in the 10th canto is just, this is not a day of Krishna. This is just a little thing.
An appetizer.
Yeah, it's not, it's a piece of grain in the Sahara. So it's not like...
Not to downplay the Bhagavatam, of course, not just please.
That's the other way around.
Exactly.
But even the same leelas that are sometimes happening, they're very different in the next day of Brahma. Then he brings up in Kaliya Leela. Sometimes here he sends Kaliya away to Fiji somewhere, but in another Kalpa, this is correct, that he rides on Kaliya to come to Kamsa. So it's very interesting. Even the same leelas have extreme variety, but even these leelas are just extreme pregnant, but even they're complete, not just new from the experience, but even new in the
shape it takes. So to
exactly,
say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Aho.
Oh. Oh.
That's for those who were in my first visit in 4 years ago. The word aho was the main word coming.
And experience.
Yeah. Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ji ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Gadai ki jai. Unlimited, bright, beautiful, ever-evolving potential of the Atma ki jai. Sadhu Sangha ki jai. Gaur Premanand Hari. Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo